thankful. I'm just driving my cousin to work. Got to go to work myself in about an hour or two. I just had an interesting conversation with him. So I figured I'll go ahead and share it with you. You see, a lot of people will claim that they believe this word, that they believe this truth. And there are some things that are given that people interpret it and there's really no harm, no foul. There's other things that people interpret that needs to be exactly what it says. But right now is the time of sifting. You know what I'm saying? You gotta make sure everything that is not flowing the way it needs to flow is out the mix. You gotta make sure that there's no leaving when you're making your dough. You gotta make sure that the chaff is separated from the wheat. Some places, when they do this, they burn the chaff off and the wheat survives. You know what I'm saying? So that's scriptural. That's kind of similar to what the scriptures say about the day that's coming in Revelations. But depending on what your level of understanding of the text is, you might not receive that. The whole entire fact of the matter is that there's a lot of things going on in the Nubian communities. People will disassociate themselves with being called Africans or African Americans. I don't care. This is not the conversation. The whole entire conversation is the fact that we're not clean. You know, when you gotta tell grown men the same thing over and over and they're not receiving it, they're making excuses for everything, that's a problem. That's a sign of unrighteousness. It creates a curse. It's a poison. It is yeast. Because eventually that's going to filter out to the women. That's going to filter out to the children. That's going to filter out to the whole entire world. My brother just made a remark. I was going to say cousin, but technically the Bible doesn't talk about that level of understanding. I was talking to him and he said this is a woman's world. I said no, it's not. It's a sinful world. It's a world that is not after Yah's own heart, and there's a reason for that. It's because of the people are not after Yah's own heart. The men are not after Yah's own heart. So when the men are not after Yah's own heart, sin comes. You know, I was thinking about courting a girl the other day, and she called herself a prophetess. And one who speaks by Yah's own spirit does not need to tell the world what they are. It's going to be known by their works and their life. You know what I mean? And that's something that if we know who they are, we tell it. People are not going to get that. They're going to keep calling themselves different titles, and they won't get why things happen because of this, what they're doing. They're sinning against Yah effectively by not keeping this way and then trying to find positions, trying to wear daddy clothes basically. But this too shall pass. Now, when a man doesn't do what he's supposed to do, he weakens the household. He weakens the generations that come after him. He makes it that much more difficult to be able to receive what the Spirit has to say to us. Now, granted, Yah created the preacher, and Yah created the apostle, Yah created the priests, Yah created the prophets as tools, symbols to effectively deal with this issue. And still, the whole fact of the matter is how many times do we have to reconstruct? How many times do we have to start over from the beginning? You know, I was watching this video today where this girl said that she met another girl in the club and then found out that she had a penis and then learned what a hermaphrodite was and said I wasn't going to be with her. And the whole entire fact of the matter is, number one, we're not supposed to have sex before marriage, and I've screwed up unbelievably. Should have never done the things I've done, and it's a daily fight to make sure that I walk in the way that Yah gives us, but it's not easy because I'm still a man. Now, going on with the conversation, she got pregnant by the hermaphrodite, and the hermaphrodite said, I don't want to be a woman no more, I want to be a man. So the hermaphrodite started dressing as a guy, which, if you can be circumcised, if you can get hard, so to speak, you are a guy. Not on the basis of what other people look at us and say that you're a guy, but they're guys. As a result, they need to be dealt with as men. One of the biggest issues with Christianity is that they attacked and judged the hermaphrodites, and that is the biggest leg that the LGBT movement had to stand on. And they don't know how to be men, or some of them don't. Some of them accepted their fate. Some of their parents took it upon themselves, which I'm not that. When it comes to this, that's like my no judgment mode. I don't deal on that mode when it comes to hermaphrodites. You could do it if you want to. I ain't risking it. But some of them have gotten their children surgeries and have gotten them hormone treatments and stuff like that to try to stop one part of their bodies from doing whatever they do. I can't touch that. What I know is that before this medication happened, we always had ways to deal with our bodies for medicine. I can't touch it. I'm not touching a surgery. What I do know is that these men were not trained up to be the way they needed to be. This gave the gay movement a leg to stand on during the civil rights era. A lot of the science came from that, and the people with PMD, which are men that have ovaries, have a uterus, but do not have a vagina. So they're not hermaphrodites. They're a step above a hermaphrodite on that scope. They don't have breasts and things of that nature. But anyway, it's things like this that open the door to confusion. Yah's not the author of confusion, but Satan is. And as a result of Satan being the author of confusion, these people use this as an opportunity to say, see, this is the way I am. But hold up. It's easy to try to judge and attack that. But some people steal and make excuses about their circumstances in their life and say, this is why I steal. This is why I kill, because I live in the hood. This is what how about the whole woman, I'm just stuck in my way, when it says, wives, obey your husbands. Stuff like that you don't get. People will argue down whether or not a man has more than one wife, but you see it happening in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? So the whole entire case in point is that if you're going to have a standard and stick by it. But understand, your ways that go against the grain of the text is why we go through what we go through. The first thing I noticed, and people ain't gonna admit it, and I really don't care because you're not being real, because I know a lot of you dudes, is that, Sandra Bland was irate with that cop, and I've been irate with a cop after being stopped 3 or 4 times in the space of a year. The last one was was where I got upset. Was I wrong? Yes. Why? Because in the grand scheme of things, them dudes got a purpose. And did he do something illegal? Heck yeah. Did I handle it the way I needed to handle it? Not really. And to be honest with you, I was like, bump it. I don't want to deal with y'all, so take my money and leave me alone. But part of that whole predicament that she got into was because of her mouth. Now, you guys don't want to accept that. That's not my problem. My problem is that we as a whole don't have a standard. I was talking to some girls and they said, if your wives were with the cops in a predicament as where they went through something similar, what would you do? I'd say, don't say anything. Keep your mouth shut. Stay away. And the reason being is because I'm not there to protect you. I'm not there to defend you. You see what I'm saying? That's the same thing that goes with sin. Opposition to Yah. Because every single time we do something that Yah opposes, we put ourselves in a predicament where he takes his hands off of us. And if you don't understand that, then you need to read the book of Judges. You don't even have to read the whole entire book. You can read chapters 2 and 3, or chapters 1 through 5, or 1 through 4, to get an understanding of why Yah created the judges after the prophet Yahushua died, son of Nun. So you could figure that out to understand what happens when we disobey. There is a causality and an effect to the methods of how we operate and how we do things. And the reason why we stuck the way we stuck in America is because when brothers and sisters come up with a plan to effectively change things, y'all not with that. Y'all like smoking and drinking weed and having sex randomly with anybody and bringing kids in this world that don't have fathers and watching all the ignorant stuff that causes our kids to act out and to do things that Yah hates. And effectively you're sending them to the lake of fire. Your fault. And you going with them. Straight up. It's a process. The text tells you this. Me deciding and telling a person that they go to hell is not the same thing as what the book says. And the book says that the wages of sin is death. And the eternal death is a lake of fire, the pit where the worms don't die. Now, people always say that if you ask for forgiveness, Yah's going to forgive you. But they neglect that there is a scripture in the Bible that already says that once you sin after keeping this away, there is absolutely no sacrifice left for you. So you stuck with those sins for judgment. Says if you want to actually get a chance, then you need to do what you got to do to stay as clean as you can from that point so that you can have an advocate. And that advocate is Yahushua HaMashiach, the Messiah. You know, if you don't want to understand that there is a punishment for the life that we live, then by all means do what you do. Just stay away from me and mine. And what I'm trying to work on right now, because I actually see the folly, is that I'm trying to see if I can get some things going so that I can separate myself. And people think it's wrong to separate, but you don't understand that you have a time to actually live conditionally the way Yah wants you to live. And you cannot do that participating with the world and the ways of the world. This is exactly why we have John chapter 17 and many of the chapters in the Bible. It says you are in the world but not of the world. It says not to be friends of the world, because to be friends of the world is to be an enemy of Yahuwah. These are the things that the text says, and it tells you. It talks to you about the punishments of sex before marriage and all the other things that we do and that we subscribe to that is sin. And I confess that that's one of my faults and one of my biggest problems, you know. And How long I haven't done it is not something I won't say, because the time is not the reasoning, because you don't know how or if the possibilities are that I would screw up tomorrow. So I got to be humble about that and understand that I treat every single day like it's a life or death situation, and try not to forget that these things can hurt us. These things are criminal to the ways of Yahuwah, and I cannot risk it. You cannot risk it. Men, we need soldiers, yo. We got to be the kings that Yah wants us to be. And when we're not, the whole kingdom falls down. It falls short, yeah. And for people who are non-Yisrael, it's easy for them to say, well, as long as I try real hard, it's okay. Yo, if you claim to believe this text, you don't have the luxury. There are 12 stones. There are 12 gates with your names on it. Everybody else coming through the front gate is coming through the front gate because they accepted the message. Your bloodline needs you to get this in line, because just the same way Solomon screwed up and he's son of Judah, just the same way Jeroboam and the Benjamites done screwed up, you got to remember, you risking a lot. Simeon and Levi made a choice carnally, which I can't even front, because had it been the same situation, I don't know if I would have thought clearly or thought straight. And Lord blessed that I don't have to deal with what they dealt with. And the rebuttal to my statement is Matthew chapter 5, because the level of keeping this way has altered. The covenant is increased to the level of even the thoughts should be dealt with, because the thoughts will determine whether or not you actually sincerely love Yah. That should scare you, because it scares me. And that fear should be honed, because it's a knowledge of who Yah is. And if you know who Yah is, then you need to deal with people who know who Yah is too. You can't just talk to any random people and try to get things going and think that these random people's going to understand, because they're not going to try. They're not going to care. They're going to like your doctrine just like the people liked the Messiah's doctrine, and they're not going to convert. They're not going to keep the way. And that's essential to understand, because even when Yah sent Yahushua down and he blessed the food in the name of Yahuwah, and he was able to split that fish and that bread to feed 5,000 people one time, 4,000 people another time, and these people saw this, it didn't strike them in their hearts enough to get in gear, you know. Now, Isaiah chapter 32 says when the king comes and the kings come, the priests come, that hearts are going to change. But if you don't believe that message and you ain't trying to change, then it's no fault but your own why your people go through what they go through. Think of yourself as a king, and your brothers and sisters' lives depend on you doing whatever you gotta do to live the way you need to live, so that hearts can be opened and so that lives can be saved. Each time a person is on the floor and their blood is spilled and they're crying out, remember that could have been a chance for your life to mean something to alter hearts and minds so that the way of the kingdom could be done while you are still on this earth. Have that righteousness about you, because your people need you. We need you. I need you. I need my brothers. I straight up need my brothers. Yeah, marriage is great. Having sisters and friends is great. Now, I need my brothers. And the reason why is because I can't fight a battle on my own, and on the level that I need to fight it, without men who got the same ability and manifestation that I got on my back to look out for me, to make sure that I don't miss something. Yeah, there's some things that women can see, but there's something about having brothers that are designed to handle the things that Yah needs him to handle, so that his way can be done on this earth. Yo, people pay for our lack of righteousness, for our lack of dominance on this earth, for our lack of manifestation. And whose fault is that? It is our fault, because we know the truth and we refuse to keep it. We don't want to walk in that righteousness that the scriptures say. And people pay for that. Now, you should be lucky that you're not like Ezekiel, who Yah said, if you get up, they're going to pay. That means everybody's lives was riding on this man to obey Yahuwah. Technically, when you think about it, everybody's lives ride on you obeying the Yahuwah. Everybody's lives in Yisrael relied on Jeroboam doing what Yah said before the prophet had to deal with him. Everybody's lives dealt with on Hezekiah from doing what he did. Everybody's lives relied on Solomon, relied on Moses. That's why Moses had to be sent back home, because Moses disobeyed. He allowed the carnality to come into him. Did Moses sin? Was it defined as sin? Moses was taken home. That's it. Because in the scope of all things, I have a friend, a brother named Dwayne, that says, yo, it's nothing personal. It's just business. Where you can't take it personal, you got to get stuff done. Hate what your father hates, man, is what I'm going to say. And we got to try our best to live that clean life so that we don't harm nobody. It says to be spiritual offerings, holy and pleasing unto Yah. There's Galatians chapter 5 that you can read. There's Ephesians chapter 1 through 4. There is Colossians chapter 3. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 6 and 7. Judges chapter 3. Genesis chapter 49. Genesis chapter 17. Genesis chapter 5. I mean, there is a slew of chapters in our book that if you sincerely want to know how to serve Yah, you can understand it. Let's see, Revelations chapters 2, 3. Go backwards. James, the book of James, all of it. The book of Jude, all of it. 2 Thessalonians chapter 4, 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, 2 Peter chapter 1, 1 Peter chapter 2. All these chapters are telling you the same exact thing all day long. It's not altering the scope. It's trying to get your mind clean, your mind right to receive the spirit of Yah. You already have the laws of Moses. So this was not about the laws of Moses. This is about the renewal of the covenant through the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the ultimate power in this earth, because that is the source of life and source of all things. And when you as a people don't understand that, or we as a people, sorry y'all, right? As we as a people don't understand what we are and what this purpose is, and keeping this way and a level of integrity that must occur so that things can happen, then that's a problem. Now, David was a man after Yah's own heart. David made mistakes and made choices that was not good. And yet, David saw those choices because Yah reflected it to him, and David's heart was broke. You got to understand that connection with David, though, that Yah felt it so necessary to deal with him on that level, to have the story, to be able to say that I'm going to love you and I'm going to deal with you and I'm going to work it out, and this is your opportunity to change. And you got to see how Solomon screwed up, because Solomon, knowing all this, having Yah come to him face to face, still chose to sin against Yah. And we all paid the price for that sin. If people don't understand the level of what happened, remember when David did the census and he had to buy land and get the sacrifice because there was an angel with an arrow pointed to the earth to fire it. It's going to obliterate us. Man, Yah punished some of us because of them choices that we made, from the choices that he made. He said, okay, so here's your punishment. I can either kill this many people or do this. What? What could you say? What could you discuss? What could you do? We have a call and duty as men of the Yahudim of Yisrael, of the 12 tribes of Jacob, to walk this way that we need to walk for the sake of everybody else. Paul calls it slaves of the Mashiach, because you're living as prisoners so that you can get the job done. And each and every time we fail to live the life the way we need to live the life, somebody dies. Somebody pays the price. Don't believe me? Now that I told you, now that you've watched this video and you're accountable about it, watch how many times Yah shows you a person die after you do something wrong. Bet you.